This is my entry for Mazzy's 3,000 subscriber San Francisco Spectacular. My original idea was to have links to San Francisco that are as far-fetched, as tenuous, as much of a stretch as possible. This is an album by the late lamented Grant McLennan, co-founder of the Go-Betweens. And as you can see, Grant is wearing his 49ers cap on the front. He seems to have been very fond of that cap. Similarly, tenuous is Blue Oyster Cult, Agents of Fortune. There's a song on this I'm sure you know called Tenderloin, and probably has nothing to do with the San Francisco area. The Johnny Guitar soundtrack, music by Victor Young, and the theme tune sung by Peggy Lee. Again, nothing to do with San Francisco, except that I bought this album in San Francisco probably 25 years ago. But then I started to come across actual connections, or closer connections, to San Francisco. One of the great debut albums of the 80s, I think, Lloyd Cole and the Commotion's Rattlesnakes, and they have the song Down on Mission Street. I saw on Lloyd's website where somebody asked him, was it written about the San Francisco street? And he had to admit he actually doesn't remember if he did know about it or not. So that may or may not be a connection. This one definitely is. Belle and Sebastian, one of their best known songs, Piazza, New York Catcher, where they sing about San Francisco's calling us, the Giants and Mets will play. And they also say the statue's crying too, and Wellie May. So that may or may not be a reference to Willie Mays. I don't know if Stuart Murdoch is clever enough to come up with that kind of a joke. We had Grant McLennan earlier. So here is his co-founder of the Go-Betweens, Robert Forster. Robert did an all covers album, and one of the songs he covers is Frisco Depot, or Frisco Depot if you prefer, by Mickey Newbury. Here's a live album recorded in San Francisco, and Mazzy, you mentioned this not too long ago, the Matrix tapes by the Velvet Underground. I was a little leery about buying this because some of the performances are already on the 1969 album, the Quine tapes, and then on the deluxe version of the third Velvet's album. But I'm glad I bought this. Great collection, really good sounding recordings. And then I was listening to an album the other day that I used to listen to a lot in the 90s. And at the time, of course, we didn't have the internet, so I didn't know where they were from. I thought I should Google that now. And lo and behold, they are a San Francisco band. That is Wire Train, the album No Soul, No Strain. Really great album, produced by Bill Bottrell, who I think produced Sheryl Crow back in the 90s. Maybe the sound is a little dated, but I think the songs really stand up all these years later. And then finally, for an author from San Francisco, he was actually born in Ohio and then moved to San Francisco after the Civil War, Ambrose Pierce. This is the unabridged Devil's Dictionary. He became a writer when he moved to San Francisco, wrote for a lot of the newspapers, which I think is where a lot of these pieces first appeared. And this one caught my eye. It's the definition of the word fig leaf. For a lot of these, he defined them by writing a poem. And so this one says, an artist's trick by which the nudes protected from the eyes of prudes. And he goes on to say, O prudes, I know ye, once ye made, in Frisco here a fool's tirade, against some casts from the antique, great, naked, natural, and Greek. And he goes on to talk about some wretch who took his chisel up and dealt at art a blow below the belt. So that's my San Francisco collection. Congratulations again, Mazzy.